How did the recent firings of James Franklin and I guess Brian Kelly being another, just two of the bold names in your profession, just a couple win streaks, losing streaks that cost them their jobs, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunately a sad reflection of our the world we're in right now, and we're not going to change it. Certainly, all of us that follow college sports, and I know you do, and you're on a couple different levels, pros and what have you. But I spent 6 years in the NFL. In a lot of ways, we've become the NFL. Although, we lack some of the good things the NFL has. Start with the salary cap. Start with, clear enforcement and consistent enforcement of rules and regulations. So we don't do that. But but a lot of the bad things that come with that have crept into our existence, and those are two illustrations. There's more than two. I remember when Coach Helton got fired at Southern Cal a couple of years ago. I believe it was in September, and that kind of struck me as interesting in that, if you had that kind of doubt going into a season, I'm not sure why you'd have a coach in place. To me, those are decisions that typically get made in the off season. But, and again, there may have been something under the surface on any of these decisions that we're not knowledgeable of. But I think it's a really clear message right now for everybody involved in this: is you better win, and you better win now, at least at most places. And I've referenced this a million times. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I'm kind of a simple-minded person, I guess. I just look at the basics, and Steelers have been pretty successful for a long time. They've had three coaches since 1969 when Chuck Noll got hired. And I think the impressive thing about that is that their leadership has changed. Obviously, Art Rooney Sr. is no longer alive or running the organization. But despite who's been making the decisions within the Steelers, they've remained true to their philosophy. And outsider looking in, it just seems like when they run into issues, they don't have a season maybe that lives up to their expectations. They don't panic. They address things and they try to solve problems instead of just cleaning house. And there's a lot of ways to approach things. I'm not being judgmental, but I guess my lean would be towards that solution. I think that makes more sense, and typically is the best thing for long-term success. But nobody's really thinking about long-term stuff right now. That's not a real popular mode of thinking.
Well, it just seems that it's a little bit, for the lack of a better phrase, Coach, off the rails when a governor of a state says something that leads to a change in an athletic department. And that is born out of a coach being fired potentially because of a tweet that was sent out from the governor's office. And that's just one situation. So I guess my question to you is, what would the fix be? I know you just mentioned how the Steelers run their organization. That's even an outlier in the NFL. Forget about college football as well. And certainly what's going on with you in Iowa is an outlier in college football as well, with 27 years and counting. So what would you say?
That's kind of sad. I've got three kids in the profession, and I worry about that. Three of my sons are boys. They're all coaching, and I do worry about that. So it's just there's different ways to look at everything, and I think you touched on something. I think it's really important, and I've noticed that in coaching. Obviously, NIL, revenue share, all that stuff. So it's a new world for us. But the biggest thing in my mind that's changed is just the noise from social media. And I spend a lot of my time trying to think about what are our guys here and what kind of, and that's always been true in coaching. You worry about what are parents or family members talking to players about. In the old days, it used to be you had to go to a bar, tavern, or a barber shop to, hear all the chatter and what's wrong in the world, all that stuff. And now, it's accessible to everybody. So it's just a different environment than it used to be that way. Not all it's healthy, unfortunately. A lot of good things on the internet, I'm sure, and social media. But it just presents a different challenge, and I think that's influenced the way a lot of people think, and including people making decisions on the futures of programs. So, I just always go back to Marv Levy. Had a great quote about if you listen to the people in the stands too much, you're gonna be sitting with them, and I think that's if you're in a leadership position, you really need to kind of bear that in mind.
I don't know if you heard Drake May had all his wise years of 23, 24 years old. He said about what the social media. He says, "Why would I, receive criticism from somebody I wouldn't take advice from?" I heard that, and I'm like, okay, that sounds reasonable. You know what I mean? Like that's something you should put on a pyramid behind you. You know what I mean?
I do, Rich, and it's something I tell our players all the time. You think about life. I mean, how many people do you really care what they think about you and what you're doing? And fortunately, I think most of us have some people in our life, whether it's parents, mentors, et cetera, that mean a lot to us, and they're, how they view us and how they view the decisions we make. That is important, and but they're not on social media typically. So I've never understood why anybody would even care what somebody you don't know, you've never met, thinks about you, or that type of thing. So, but in the world we're living in right now, it's a pretty powerful pull, and I think you just got to try to be as proactive as you possibly can with the people you work with and the people you care about. You're starting with your kids at home. It's a really challenging time, I think, to be a parent, to be an educator, certainly a coach, and it's it's just really interesting times right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front. I only take that sort of stuff from people in my inner circle and George Kittle. I'll take it from George.
There you go.
You know what I mean? He's
good Iowa guy.
He's like every tight end in the National Football League. It's pretty much
his story's a good one for sure.
Well, that's for sure. Do you got a good Kittle story? Do you ever have to?
Well, I actually coached his dad. I'm old enough. I coached his dad in 1981. My first year here, he was our left tackle, captain on the team that went from after 19 straight losing seasons.
Yeah,
after Big Ten champions that year, and Bruce was a big part of that. Great football player. But the real reason we offered George was because Bruce's wife, Jan, was a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal basketball player at Drake. And her and her sister, Barb, just beat the heck out of Bruce and I once in a 2-on-2 game. I had a whole different level of appreciation for women athletes after that point. But, that's where George's athleticism comes from mom, not from dad.
I appreciate you confirmed that for us. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.